Welcome on in, folks. This is Sprues and Studs, and yet again, we are going to be taking another look at a special character in this video. Specifically, we're going to be taking a very deep dive into Adrax Agatone. And without any further hesitation, let's take a closer look at him, shall we? Unwrapping time for Mr. Agatone. I would expect his box to be pretty much similar to the rest. Now for the full Monty. So as we are looking at Mr. Agatone over here, take a look at his beautiful face. He's got the characteristic dark skin of the Salamanders and a very shiny forehead as well as skull. And as you're taking a look at him, he has piercing red eyes that are staring at you. They look very molten and very nice as they have been undercoated with silver and then again highlighted with a nice red color. And he's also got a very interesting respirator with this hose that's attached to this section of the power armor that he is wearing. So let's move on from the face region and take a look at the pauldron. Well, it kind of looks like a modified double Aquila in that you have the body of the eagles. However, the eagles have very interesting scales here. And as I am taking a look at this action figure and the wings of this double Aquila, there actually really isn't any shading whatsoever. And looking at one of the heraldic shields, you have a salamander or a dragon right here. And this dragon actually does have a lot of shading in between the scales. There is a nice looking flame at the bottom of it that further accentuates this. And then on the other side, you have the Salamanders symbol here that has been nicely screened on. The edges of this pauldron have been nicely colored a vibrant gold color. And this obviously right here holds down the cape, in which we will get to in a little bit. Now, in the middle of Agatone, you get to see a bunch of wires that are connected to the backpack. And as I'm actually surveying this whole action figure, there really isn't any shading going on whatsoever with the recesses of the armor panels that you get to see on other action figures, which kind of matches the rest of the aesthetic of the Salamanders. And the other thing that I'm going to point out to you is that instead of the shading, they actually have a lighter yellow highlight. So you can see here between the green of the Salamanders as well as the gold right here, there is a yellow highlight, which is very interesting. So in the middle of Agatone, there is almost like a UFC type of belt, which is completely massive. And it is very cool in that there is the salamander right here. You can see the scales up top, as well as the dark recesses of the eyes. What's interesting about this is that this dragon is actually breathing flames out of its nostril, and I do really like the gradual color transition from the yellow all the way up to orange and then finally red. Moving on to the lower section of Agatone, you see a chain here that's been heavily weathered. There is actually shading that is going on as well as weathering. So you can see this dark black and the lighter silver on top of the darker gunmetal. And down here you can see a dragon's tooth that is dangling down. That is some sort of maroonish kind of color. There is a hammer as well as another tooth right here. And on the back, there's really nothing to see except that there are a bunch of highlights on the upper regions of the armor panels. So flipping around back, taking a look at the tabard, it is obviously black. You can see that there are highlights on the higher edges of this loincloth. And the cool thing about this loincloth is that there are flames at the bottom of it that mimic this dragon up here. So once again, you have the yellow undercoat gradually transition to a nice orange color, and then finally at the tops of it is a red. Now flipping this loincloth up just so that we can see a little bit more of Agatone's lower half of the body, there is a purity seal that is dangling down, and you have nice golden flames that are licking up the shin of this action figure. And once again, very pronounced highlights that are going on in between the green as well as the gold on the armor panels. So one of the coolest thing about Agatone is that he's got a very badass looking cape. Take a look at this cape. It is absolutely insane with the amount of detail that is going on. Obviously, it's supposed to mimic a dragon's hide, and it does a fantastic job of doing that. So it is extremely textured, and then this is, I suppose, probably mimicking the mid-spine of the dragon. So you can see these nice spikes that are sticking up on this action figure. So this, in my opinion, is probably the coolest looking cape just because of all the texture and the shading that's going on with it. Now we will put down the body of Agatone and take a look at his weapons, starting off with Adrax, which is a very special flamer here. So Adrax is actually attached to the power armor. So I'm going to demonstrate to you. There is a little peg right here that you can fit this part to attach Adrax, and then once it has been attached, you can have Agatone wield it properly. And detach this. So we're going to take a look at this nice flamer here. So in this region, you get to see a lot of weathering, and it does mimic the bolt rifle kind of colors. And progressing on, there's a black body, gold skull, and then finally ending off with this flame shield, I suppose, right here. One thing I'm going to say is I kind of wish that this would have mimicked the Raider pattern combat bike, and that there was a gradual transition from this dirty soot color all the way up to a gold color. This seems to be nice and pristine, and this really shouldn't be pristine because we know that Agatone has been through a lot of battles, and this thing is probably used quite a lot. So we're going to put down this modified flamer and take a look at the Malleus Noctum, which is the gigantic thunder hammer. And taking a look at this thunder hammer, it is actually very unique in that it has rounded ends instead of square ends that we're so used to seeing. It is a darker gunmetal silver. There's a nice gold ring on the edges of this thunder hammer, and in the middle of it is a skull as well as flames that are licking up the sides of it. The nice thing about this backpack is that it contrasts with the green in the back. Typically, most Space Marine backpacks actually match the color of the armor, but for Agatone, it is obviously different. So it is black. The defining detail on this thing is obviously the flames up top here. So you see that the receptacle for the flame is a silver color, and then when you are looking at the flame, it is actually a very burnt orange, and then progresses to a darker kind of burnt orange, and then finishes off with a very interesting silver tail, which I'm not actually too sure why this is the color that it is, but this is how JoyToy painted their action figure, so this is what we get. All right, we have Adrax Agatone completely reviewed, and let me know what you think of him in the comments section below as usual. So I'll let you know what I think about Agatone. Again, he is a special character, and he's really, really badass looking, like all Salamanders are. So I would have to say that the first defining feature, in all honesty, is in the back of Agatone, which is his very, very unique cape. I really like it because it mimics basically a dragon scale back. And I think that JoyToy did a fantastic job with that. Second thing is that I like the specialized weaponry that he has. So obviously the thunder hammer as well as the modified flamer is really cool looking. And finally, the unique sculpt on his face is actually very nice looking, with the eyes being a very glowing red. One thing that I forgot to mention is that there are some limited mobility with Agatone. So you know how in the review I said that Agatone had his respirator connected to the power armor. That actually does inhibit some of the motion that you can possibly get. And then with the flamer, when you attach it to the back of Agatone, he has limited movement on his left hand. So that's one thing that you need to be aware of. But overall, I think that he is a solid action figure that all special character collectors should be getting. And then obviously, if you are a Salamanders fan, this is a no-brainer in that you should be getting this action figure. So to wrap it up, I would have to say, yes, he is a must get just because of his special character status. So this is Sprues and Studs. Once again, members of the chapter, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting the channel so consistently. Your viewership means a lot to the channel as it attracts, obviously, more viewers to the channel. So once again, thank you so much. And for the unsubscribed viewers, please make sure to hit that subscribe button because you know you want to be part of the chapter, don't you? So when I review these action figures, I go into extreme depth in them. So if detail is what you want, once again, hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, thank you all, and I'll see you all in the next one.